Okay, let's dive right into this highly anticipated explainer because, well, we need to address the elephant in the room right away. Apple is completely changing the game this year. Seriously, this isn't just your standard run-of-the-mill incremental update. We are looking at a massive paradigm shift in how they handle their biggest product. So, the biggest question on everybody's mind right now is, where exactly is the standard iPhone 18? For the first time in recent memory, Apple is actually breaking their long-standing tradition. They're reportedly holding back that standard baseline model from their main September event entirely. Yeah, you heard that right. If you're the kind of person who usually upgrades to the standard model every fall, you're going to be left waiting this time around. And this new timeline, it's honestly a total shock. September 2026 is now completely reserved for the heavy hitters. We're talking the iPhone 18 Pro, the 18 Pro Max, and the brand new iPhone Ultra. They're clearly prioritizing their absolute highest-end tech right out of the gate. As for the standard iPhone 18, the new budget 18e, and that ultra-thin iPhone Air 2, those are all getting pushed all the way back to a rumored March 2027 release. It's a staggered schedule that pretty much tears up the old Apple playbook. Let's move into our first major shift for today. Apple's very first foldable, the iPhone Ultra.
Now, the iPhone Ultra is rocking this book-style design. Picture a 5.5-inch passport-sized screen on the outside, but when you open it up, boom, you get this massive 7.6-inch inner display with a 4:3 aspect ratio, which is exactly the same shape as an iPad. But here's the real shocker, the biometrics. All the rumors point to a surprising pivot away from Face ID. Instead, they're going with a side-facing fingerprint reader. This is a massive departure from the last 7 years of iPhone design, but it makes total sense for this specific folding architecture.
All right, moving on to part 2, design and display upgrades. Shifting back over to the Pro models, we're seeing a really fascinating evolution with the display. By finally taking those Face ID infrared components and tucking them under the screen, Apple is shrinking the dynamic island way down. It's going to be so much less intrusive. Plus, the back of the phone is getting a really sleek aesthetic upgrade. They're moving away from that two-toned rear shield and going with a beautifully frosted, totally seamless ceramic back. As for colors, dark cherry is heavily rumored to be this year's absolute hero color, right alongside light blue, dark gray, and silver. But it's not just a fresh coat of paint. The physical interaction is changing too. That camera control button, it's being simplified. It'll be purely pressure sensitive now, dropping all the complex touch and haptic stuff from last year. Oh, and the Pro Max is getting slightly thicker, making it the heaviest iPhone ever at over 240 grams. Why the extra weight? Hold that thought, we'll get to it in just a sec. But first, there's a huge internal shift happening. The physical SIM tray, it is officially dead globally. Apple kicked this off in the US a little while ago, but now the whole world is being pushed into the dual eSIM era. And here's why that matters. Ripping out that physical tray worldwide frees up some extremely precious internal space. And that extra real estate leads us perfectly into our next massive upgrade.
Which brings us to Section 3, Performance, Battery, and Cameras.
The sheer, immense power of this device is just staggering. The chipset is taking a huge leap to the A20 Pro, running on a cutting-edge 2nm process from TSMC. Basically, that translates to a 10 to 15% speed boost and up to 30% better energy efficiency. They're also cranking the RAM up to 12 gigs just to smoothly handle all those heavy Apple Intelligence tasks. But honestly, the most exciting part might be the connectivity. Apple is finally ditching Qualcomm. They're using their own in-house C2 modem, which is rumored to bring 5G web browsing directly via satellite when you're completely off the grid. I mean, wow, that's an absolute game changer. Okay, remember how I mentioned the Pro Max was getting thicker and heavier? Well, here's the payoff. A massive 5,200 mAh battery. It's officially crossing that 5,000 threshold for the very first time. When you pair a battery that huge with the hyper-efficient 2nm chip and the new LTPO Plus display tech, which manages screen light way better, we are talking about a dramatic, unprecedented boost. Think solid all day or maybe even multi-day battery life. Now let's talk cameras, because the hardware here is getting incredibly cool. We're getting a variable aperture. To put that into perspective, just think of a camera lens like the pupil of your own eye. When you're in a dark room, your pupil expands to let in as much light as possible, right? And when it's super bright out, it contracts. Apple is finally bringing this physical, mechanical capability to the main iPhone camera.
This pupil-like hardware is amazing because it gives everyday users legit DSLR-level control. It's built right into the 48-megapixel Fusion camera. So, in bright light, this variable aperture will physically close down to stop your highlights from getting all washed out.
It also lets you capture really natural-looking motion blur. But the best part, it gives you real optical depth of field. Your portrait mode shots will have actual stunning background blur or bokeh instead of just relying on software to fake it.
All right, our final section, expected prices and plans. So what's all this next-gen tech going to cost you? Well, you might want to brace yourselves, because we're expecting some pretty staggering price hikes. Industry sources are pointing out that the whole generative AI boom has massively driven up the cost of memory and storage globally. And unfortunately, those costs are being passed right on to us. Based on early Australian pricing estimates, the base iPhone 18 Pro could jump to a whopping $2,399, while the Pro Max might start at $2,599. That is a really steep climb just for Apple to maintain their current profit margins.
And what if you want that foldable? Well, the iPhone Ultra is estimated to land somewhere between $2,699 and $3,299 Australian dollars. I know, it's a massive premium, but it actually falls right in line with the high-end rival foldable market right now. Turns out the cutting edge of book-style folding screens and custom parts definitely does not come cheap.
To help cushion that massive upfront hit, the major carriers are really leaning into 24 and 36-month repayment plans. Looking at the Aussie market, Telstra is offering the widest 5G coverage and some neat satellite messaging perks. Optus is trying to win folks over with streaming discounts through SubHub and cheap roaming data. And Vodafone, they're focusing on steep bundle discounts for home internet, plus their famous $5 daily international roaming. Look, spreading a $2,400 phone over 3 years definitely makes that monthly sting a lot easier to swallow.
So, with Apple completely splitting its release schedule between September and March, does this mark the official end of the traditional, predictable iPhone cycle we've known for a decade? And looking at those massive price tags versus the incredible new tech, are you actually willing to pay that ultra premium, or are the Pro models more than enough for you? Really let that sink in. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and we'll keep exploring these fascinating shifts in the tech world together.